Hi everyone, and welcome back to Splashpage. I'm Sean, and as always, I'm joined by Andrew. And we just finished watching episode 5 of season 1 for Why the Last Man, cleverly named Manhunt.
That's a good one.
Weens, what did you think of the episode?
In general, I enjoyed the episode. We got some of the politics back, but in a smaller amount that is digestible. We get, finally, Yorick, 355, and Dr. Mann together, so we've got the team together. We've got a little drama going on there. And some interesting stuff going down. So, yeah, I liked it. It was fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed this episode as well. I think it recovered from last week's kind of lull. I'm a big fan of kind of moving the story in the direction of the comic. And as we know, the Dr. Mann connection is a very important one. So let's hope we get to see where that goes in a way that kind of ramps up the story a little bit. I feel like it's been kind of sluggish at points. And I'm really hoping that some of these kind of small Easter eggs or nods start paying off in a bigger way.
I almost feel like we should have started the series closer to this episode.
Yeah, I mean, the first episode makes complete sense because it wants to set up this world. But then we kind of got in a bit of a muck, in my opinion. A lot of back and forth, a lot of like attempting at cool character moments, but in reality, like, we're in this brand new world, and while characters are obviously hugely important, really you gotta experience this world more, gotta be out in it more, gotta be putting our characters in precarious situations so that we learn more about them. It's been more conversational, and I love some good dialogue, and to be honest with you, I feel like some of that's missing here. So it's just basically been a bunch of characters talking in low light. And now we're finally starting to move along, you know? So let's jump in. Let's talk about the two different storylines. We'll call it the Yorick storyline and the Jennifer Brown storyline. And we'll start with Yorick. Yorick has reached Boston with 355. And immediately we see Boston is in not great shape. There is still a level of army or military staying loyal to the American government, what remains of the American government. And they are kind of clashing with the locals who really don't trust the government. And it's seen by A, the fact that they riot pretty frequently, and B, a lot of the walls are plastered with graffiti, and a lot of them are Jennifer Brown's face with liar painted on them.
Yeah, Boston does have that kind of working class feeling that Boston does, and kind of the conspiracy angle coming from Boston. And you do get the Yorick being from New York, Boston kind of, I'm not going to say hatred, but rivalry.
Yeah, he has some good words to say about it for sure.
Yeah.
So once they arrive, 355 asks Yorick to keep his mask on, and I think she says it either 2 or 3 times during this episode. But she kind of hides Yorick, runs in, and has a relatively easy time breaking through the military base and getting all the information she needs. Yeah. So she gets wind that the lab or the building that Dr. Mann used to work in has been completely destroyed, and essentially after that comes back to find Yorick. Yorick had a little interaction with a handful of the, I guess, rioters and people that are printing the pamphlets that they're handing out, and the anti-government propaganda kind of stuff, and is able to maneuver through that one pretty easily as well. Before they run to Dr. Mann's apartment, figure out she has not been there for a little while, but find a building, which I believe, Weens, you said it was the Union building?
The Union Club of Boston.
Union Club of Boston. Yeah. So they go there. Yorick tries to open up the door with his escape artist lock-picking ability and fails. So 355 shoots the lock off, and they enter.
Yeah, because like you said, nobody knocks in this show.
Nobody knocks. Like countless times, and we'll bring it up in a couple minutes after this too. Just knock. Just knock.
Yeah. Well, I honestly, to go back real quick, I think the only reason they got into that printing press room was to get that super prescient line out of "Nobody could hide forever when the whole world is looking for you."
Yeah.
Which should have been the poster for this show.
And the thing is, Dr. Mann says something similar as well. So it's not even like that was an eye-opening or a cool line. But, I digress. So we now are with Dr. Mann, who starts the show by stabbing Yorick in the back with a giant butcher knife, but leaves like a little gash, tiny gash.
Hey, stabbings happen.
Stabbings happen. Dr. Mann is kind of shocked, I think. Jumps up and down a few times. Is she angry? Is she happy? Seeing two mammals with Y chromosomes being alive, and that they were together during the occurrence, let's call it.
The event, the apocalypse.
The event, what particularly interests her. Unfortunately, she can't do what needs to be done in Boston because her lab was destroyed. So she says she has to go to San Francisco, and seems like she would have gone even without Yorick and 355 going with her. 355 says she has to go on a little errand, goes downstairs. Yorick comes after her. We see 355 actually break the cell phone, walkie-talkie, satellite phone. Yeah. Yep. And claim that it broke in their travels.
Which and technically it did. So, she was right.
Her travels down the stairs to crack it in half. And from there, she kind of leaves. And Yorick and Dr. Mann kind of spend some time together. Again, kind of that character interaction, conversation, who we were before, what's happening now. But they do touch upon a lot of interesting stuff around Y chromosomes. And how they're not only in males. So some interesting stuff there. But then 355 goes to a house, which I believe is the address that she found in the safe house from New York.
Yes.
So we do know that it wasn't about Dr. Mann, this address. This address was for something else. And
that was the Culper safe house, I guess. The Boston Culper safe house.
And again, without knocking, we have 355 climbing up scaffolding, opening an open window, going down the stairs and being attacked by what turns out to be another Culper ring spy. Her name is 525. And after a brief scuffle, they find out that they both came there for the same reason. And that reason is the person who recruited both of them used to live there or stay there or was the safe house for them. So they were hoping to run into
I'm not 100% sure 355 was there for that. I think she was just there to figure out what was going on. I think that's what the other woman was there for, and she was like, okay, yeah, let's figure out what you're doing here. That's what I got out of that.
Well, yeah, I didn't think that 355 was there to kill her. No. Kill the person that recruited them. No. She wants to go there to talk to them, I would assume. So yeah, they have their little conversation. 355 gets a few more guns. And then I think we kind of find out what those little black metal things that twist with the green and red lights are.
What are they? Because I still don't know what they are.
So it appears they're trackers of some sort. And the indicator on them is either a red blinking light or a green light. And my assumption is when those trackers are close enough together, it will turn green from red. So red means it's on. Green means there's another tracker or the tracker that you're looking for.
So to find someone else from the Culper ring.
Right, exactly.
Which is why she was so relieved in the first episode when it turned green. That there was someone else nearby, I guess. Which I guess must have been this... I don't know who that was.
Potentially. I think it was turned green because she was in that safe house.
Right.
That's what I think. And those gentlemen that were dead were obviously part of the Culper ring. And that was their trackers indicating that they were there. So that is why I think when it turns green when you're close to somebody.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
So From there, we have 355 leave with a bunch of new weapons, which is cool. It goes back to the safe house, or not the safe house, the Union.
Union
what
Club.
Was it called again?
The Union Club of Boston.
And once she gets there,
she finds Yorick and Man just trashed on Chardonnay, excitedly screaming about hormones and chromosomes, because they've already bonded over 355 being secretive and weird.
Yeah. Which really has become just the biggest part of this show, because it comes up in the other storyline as well, which we'll get to in a minute. But the decision is made by the group to leave Boston and head for San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And in another shady move, 355 claims that she spoke to the president, Jennifer Brown, Yorick's mother, and she greenlit them going to San Francisco. And we know she has not spoken to her.
Yeah. Which, when we do, let's jump over to that other storyline real quick into that area. I assume that President Brown kind of knew that 355 was going to take out those pilots, but we find out that no, that was not the case. She is thoroughly scared for her son's life and can't wait to hear back whether or not those bodies are Yorick or not.
Yeah, and when she does find out that the bodies or the DNA that was tested is just of the two pilots, she freaks out again because she's like, who the F is this 355? Who did I just send my son away with?
Yeah.
So it went from I'm trusting this woman with one of the most valuable assets remaining in the world to like, who the hell is this woman?
Yeah.
And it seems like it's kind of backwards.
Yeah. Well, now it's the most valuable asset, but it's also my son. And I don't know what she's capable of or what she's doing or what she thinks I suggested that she should do. It's very like, can we just find her and get her back here?
Yeah, she also mentions to Christine, I believe her name is, find everything you can about the Culper ring. Yes. So now she's like, I don't even know what these people do or what they did before. And we know that there was that kind of eye-opening moment when 355 introduced herself to Jennifer Brown because she had just become president. So we were aware that Jennifer Brown wasn't knowledgeable about the Culper ring still being in existence. But that being said, you think they would have talked about it a little bit and it wouldn't have just been like, oh, that exists, cool. Why don't you take my son?
I'm sure it was in a scene we missed. Speaking of Christine, we have some advances on her storyline too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is one that, again, is a setup, and I really hope it's not as cut and dry, but we have Christine, who Kimber caught Jennifer Brown whispering in her ear. Kimber's in the restroom. Christine comes in and believes she's having a miscarriage. Kimber plays the loyal friend and confidant, really helps her out, and genuinely, I'm sure that was super appreciated by Christine. But we find out Christine is pregnant, and it's likely a girl, but they need to do a blood test to be sure. And Christine wants to keep it quiet.
I have a feeling it will be a boy, and we have a ticking time bomb of we need to find an answer before she gives birth.
Oh, that could happen.
Yeah,
that could
that's what I'm
happen.
thinking is happening. I also do like the actress that plays Kimber kind of playing both sides, sometimes better than others, sometimes more obvious than others that she's trying to get what she wants. But she's always kind of sneaking around trying to gain some power for her side.
Yeah, well, I mean, she does have that information now about Christine, so if she wants to blackmail her about the pregnancy or about the potential miscarriage or whatever. I just hope that that's not the reason why Christine would end up giving her information. It's just so low stakes from a standpoint of like saying I'm pregnant to being blackmailed for it.
Well, I'm thinking, and I know Kimber can't know this as a character, but that's why I'm thinking Kimber won't say anything until she has all the information. And once she finds out what I believe is the case, that it's a boy, that's when she'll have all the power.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. That's a good point. And that could work out well. Yeah. And that being said, Kimber now has another ally potentially in Secretary Oliver, who has come back from Israel.
Comes back badass in that wheelchair and sunglasses with the entire military behind her.
Yep, and then she's able to stand up like it's no thing. Yep. But it's really interesting dynamic there, because technically, based on the chain of command, she should be president. But Jennifer Brown not only maintains that title, but when Oliver talks to her, they kind of have that like, oh, we should partner. But if I was president, would you be saying that same thing?
Yeah.
And we certainly know there was no watering down of her beliefs based on what happened, because she calls Jennifer Brown and the current government socialists. So it's not like her heart melted because of the suffering of the world. If anything, she's ready to go. Looks like she's ready to brawl. And Kimber is definitely in her corner, has been around for a long enough time that she kind of has information that most likely will help Oliver succeed. So that'll be a fun dynamic. And I'm just happy that this part of the story is now part of the story and is not driving the whole show.
Yeah.
The episodes 2 and 3 were really, really heavily focused on this storyline, this plot point, which is fine and it's interesting, but it's not the comic. And I know the show isn't the comic, but yeah, it's really got to be about Yorick and 355 and Man moving around. It's got to be about Hero and her struggles. Mm-hmm. So now that this is a part of the show, it feels better. It feels right. It feels more in line.
Yeah. Speaking of Hero, I guess they did not cross paths on their way, because we made it all the way to Boston before she made it down to D.C. So that was, I guess she's still heading to D.C., which makes sense. There would be no reason for them to cross.
Makes total sense. Makes total sense.
Also, she's not going to D.C. anymore. She's stopped with the group, right? At least probably.
Right, yeah. Yeah, she stopped with who we guessed would shake out to be the Daughters of the Amazon. Again, complete guess.
Living in a Costco with chickens now.
Yeah, but hey, listen. I mean, living in a Costco, there's nothing wrong with that. That's probably where I would go. Yeah. They got everything.
You can get a year's supply of pickles in one jar. It's beautiful.
And that's amazing. Yeah. Pickles are fantastic. Before we leave, I do want to call out that so far, in my opinion, we just got the best line from the show. And the line is, "Did you draw all these dicks?"
Yeah.
Said by Yorick to Dr. Man as he is kind of looking at the walls and all the paintings, and they all have penises drawn on them. And apparently that's how Dr. Man coped.
People grieve in their own way.
Everything going on. She just drew some dicks on stuff, and I can appreciate that. But Weens, what did you think overall? If you had to give it a star rating right now, give me the show and then give me the episode.
Well, let's say, what are we doing? 5 stars, 6 stars, 7 stars? Out of 7 stars, no.
Okay, 10 stars, man. Everything's out of 10 stars.
You're right. Yeah. Out of 10 stars, this episode, I would give a solid 7, 8. The show, a little bit less, just because we had a little kind of baggage coming into it. And honestly, this episode should have maybe been episode 2 or part of episode 2 into 3. And they could have fit all that other politics stuff inside of the other storyline. There was no rush to get to all of that. We didn't need to know all of that immediately. I'd say the show on average, it's good. I'd say a 6 right now, hoping it averages up by the end of the season.
I agree. I think the episode was a good one, and I'm looking forward to next week. Yeah. Right now, the show is probably in that 6 range for me as well. It's still so early, and I was really hoping that we'd have a couple like real eye-opening moments and eye-opening episodes, but I think that's still sitting under the surface a bit. So hoping that in episodes 7 through 10, I would assume there are going to be 10 episodes. This really ramps up.
Well, that was the moment, like you were talking about before we started filming, with the cliffhangers, where we just end on that detector turning green, and we think it means someone's close, but we really are not 100% sure what it means, or at least I wasn't. Maybe you caught more than I did. And how cliffhangers are supposed to be something the audience knows that the characters don't. We're like, oh my God, it's going to happen. But in this show, it seems more like the characters know and the audience is kind of clueless.
Yeah, everything was just kind of we're just in the
Yeah.
dark, and they're just adding to things we're in the dark about. We get very little information about what 355 is doing and what's going on. And at the end of the episode, the tracker was just blinking red. I don't think it ever blinked green,
yeah.
so it just meant it's on.
Well, you can do it that way, and I'm afraid to compare this show to Lost, but they just kept adding confusing things that we didn't understand the whole time, and it was exhilarating until it ended. Here it's, I don't know. I'm hopeful is what I am on this.
Yeah. And I think that's a safe place to be, because we do know the source material is fantastic. And if they're able to utilize any of it, we'll be in good shape. But great. Thanks, everyone, for watching. I'm Sean. That's Andrew.
And if you're at New York Comic Con this next week, what is it, October 10th, 11th-ish? Friday, Saturday, I'll be there. So come on by, find me.
Sounds good. All right, take it easy, YouTube.